evening to our city council meeting, March 7th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I'd like to remind you all to silence cell phones. And Tina, take it away.
Roll call: Allen,
Present.
Carmack,
Present.
Combs,
Present.
Better,
Present.
Harrison,
Present.
Spicer.
I'll rise for a prayer and a pledge. Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the blessings that you have bestowed on this city. Help us to work together for the good of the community and our citizens. Help us to make wise decisions for all of our first responders and safe. Help them to keep I want to remind you we are live streaming, and all your mics are voice activated, so please don't talk over each other. And we'll begin. Our first guest tonight is Major Ara Smith. I don't.
Close. I answered anything close.
Okay, from the Warren County Drug Task Force.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. My name's Steve Aerosmith.
Aerosmith.
Yes.
Well, why don't you say the band?
That's why I answered anything close. You can imagine I've been called lots of things close to that throughout my life. So thank you very much for an opportunity to be here again tonight. I appreciate a few minutes to distribute our annual report and to tell you a little bit about what's been going on over the last year, and to say thank you to this council and to the residents of this city, to our sheriff's office posts down here who we work with frequently. We can't operate and do what we do without partnerships with the community and partnerships with law enforcement all across this county. So for many of you, what you will read in that annual report is very similar to years past, unfortunately. I don't seem to come around with a lot of great news, but I appreciate being able to give you a little update. So I'm going to touch on just a couple things. Hopefully you'll be able to flip through that later. I know I'm always available if you need me to come back or you have questions later, please reach out and call me. But the Warren County Drug Task Force remains a multi-jurisdictional drug task force. We're responsible for conducting full-time drug trafficking investigations in all of Warren County and in the city of Wilmington over in Clinton County. So as many of you know, Clinton County, Wilmington has been a part of our task force for many years, with that direct connection between State Route 73 and 22 and 3, and how those routes come into our county. There's a lot of back and forth in the world of drug trafficking. So they've been great partners. We continue to target mid to upper level drug traffickers. The task force concept remains the most effective way to target drug trafficking. Unfortunately, we continue to spend a great deal of our time on drug traffickers that don't actually live in our community. The percentage of those cases seems to go up every year as Dayton and Cincinnati drug traffickers continue to be more and more of a problem for us. We do still have local problems and local hotspots and traffickers at lower levels, but a lot of our mid to upper level drug trafficking suspects and targets are north and south of us. The geographical location of Warren County, 2 interstates, everybody understands there's good and bad that comes with that. So that allows easy access to our drug traffickers in those major cities to prey upon our addicted population. So you'll read in your annual report about the HIDA program. HIDA stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. Most of you have heard about that as well. Fantastic program. That's what pushes federal, state, and local law enforcement together under one roof and forms our task force. So it provides some funding, which helps us. As you know, funding is always an issue with our task force, and I'll touch on that as well. But that program really, the force multiplier concept of a task force. Without the HIDA program, we wouldn't have as many agencies together doing this. So as the task force commander, I continue to report to the policy board. Policy board is made up of the sheriff, the prosecutor in Warren County, Mr. Fornshell, and the prosecutor over in Clinton County, as well as almost every police chief in the county. So I've got 16 bosses, and we meet monthly and we talk through, they get updates on cases and things that the task force is doing. And they provide ongoing oversight and direction and establish our policies and things like that. So it's a great way to operate, very even playing field. Staffing for last year, we were down a little bit. As you know, home agency needs will always come first. So if an agency is running short, people aren't exactly lining up to get into this profession anymore, it seems like. So home agencies are struggling. And then when that happens and they can't fill a patrol shift, they're going to pull somebody from a specialized assignment. So we were down to 17 full-time people last year. Still a lot of law enforcement focusing on drug trafficking investigations, but they came from 12 different agencies, already starting to increase this year. But again, that just depends on home agency staffing and needs. Last year we had 331 cases. As a reminder, it's very rare for a drug task force case to be a one-day event. Typically they're multi-days, multi-weeks, multi-months. Some go well beyond 1 year and 2 years, just depending on details of that case. We had 114 felony arrests, seized 58 firearms, executed 125 search warrants. I sound like a broken record from last year. Methamphetamine and fentanyl remain our greatest drug threats. That is what we spend the most of our time on each day. And again, most of that is coming into our communities from Dayton and Cincinnati. Last year, our task force seized over 35 pounds of methamphetamine, over 6 pounds of fentanyl, and about 18.5 pounds of cocaine. So on a positive note, drug-related overdose deaths in Warren County were down last year. So that's a good thing. We had 35 drug overdose deaths in comparison to 2022. There was 45. So would love to see a zero one of these years. That's surely what we're working towards. Funding, same, nothing has changed with that. We continue to operate on grants, the HIDA program, which I already mentioned, community contributions. I can't thank this council enough for the support, the consistent support that we've always received from the city. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The community contributions alone account for almost 30% of our overall budget. So our task force could not operate the way that it does without that support, and we're just extremely grateful for that all across the county. But thank you very much. That's about it. If you have any questions after you review that, let me know. Glad to answer any if you have some right now. Otherwise, I'll duck out unless you're going to make me stay.
For your
Appreciate that.
Now I'm going to open the floor to the public to speak on laws. Just state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, John Laws, 89 Bettles Court in South Lebanon, just up the hill in Stonebrook. I usually come here with John Chambers, who's one of my neighbors, but he had to be out of town on a personal matter this evening, so he's not here. I just want to give you a quick update on Convention of States. We have had House Bill HJ3 has been now promoted to the committee for discussion up in Columbus. And on February 6th, we had about a 3-hour presentation that we did with the House committee. Went through everything that Convention of States has been working on in all the various states across the country. It went very well, is very well received, and they're getting ready, I believe, in the next 2 to 3 months to move that into the actual floor of the House for a vote. So it's been received very well. I was able to actually speak at that hearing. So you did have a voice from South Lebanon speaking at the House that day. I was, I think, number 9 out of 11 speakers, and I'd sat on a nice hard wooden chair for 2 hours before I got there. But I did get there and have a chance to speak. So that's what we're doing. Our mission and vision hasn't changed. We are right now really in the House with, I believe, 11 different states, which is kind of amazing because so many of them are like Ohio, they had to turn over and you had to resubmit in the fall and everything. And surprisingly, Idaho, which we didn't think we were going to be anywhere with, had a House vote, and it passed in the House and moving on to the Senate. So we are at 20 states right now. We need 34. We think we can get 6 to 7 maybe this year, and then hopefully, kick that up to 34 in a year and a half or so after that, and bring this whole thing to a constitutional convention for the whole country, well before 2030, which would be fantastic. So if you have any questions, feel free to direct them, to the Convention of States or to me or to John. We just, like I said, live up the hill. So always happy to talk to you about Convention of States and what we're doing and where the movement is going. And I know you've been very supportive to this point, and, so always happy to answer and work with you on anything you need. Thank you.
Now I will close the floor to the public. Our first order of business is ordinance 2024-7, and it is the first reading adopting permanent appropriations for current expenses and other expenditure period of January 1, 2024 through December 1st, 20. This is so entered into the record. I want all your questions or concerns for the workshop because Tina's going to go over the budget then. Okay? Resolutions 2024-07, first reading approving council's intent to sell unneeded, obsolete, or unfit property by internet gov deal. So entered into the record as the first reading. Resolution 2024-8, first reading authorizing an agreement with Sweeping Corp of America to provide street sweeping services in 2024, so entered into the record. The emergency resolution 2024-09, authoring amendment number 2 to the agreement with Choice One Engineering for the Mason Morrow Millgroves Phase 2 project. I need a motion to suspend.
Second.
Are there any questions or concerns?
Allen. Carmack. Combs. Feder. Harrison. Spicer.
I will need a motion to by title only, to adopt by title only of the emergency resolution 2024-9.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Yay. Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Check. Yep. You just gotta be.
Closer.
Hello.
There we go. Okay. We're all back.
We're all back. Love technology. Approval of the motions. I need a motion to approve. And before we approve, are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none.
Motion to approve. Yay. Made.
Second. Yay. Yay.
Approved. Old business, moving on to ordinance 2024-5. This is the second reading, approving zoning upon completion of annexation of 556 Mason Morrow Mill Grove Road, contained in the Ling annexation in accordance with the city zoning regulations. I need an motion or suspend. No, just a motion, sorry. Motion to adopt by title only.
Make a motion to adopt. Yay.
Are there,
Motion made.
oh.
Mhm.
Approved by, I need a motion to adopt by title only. I'll spit it out.
Motion made.
Alan.
Yay.
On to communications and reports from our city officials and committees. I know that Jerry and I and Tina and Andrew are probably feeling like we're joined at the hip. So it's been another busy week. It's been a busy week, and we have, here they are. We have discussed River Creek's lofts, working on hiring. So you all have seen that the civil service exam has been posted on our website for March the 23rd. That will be the day that it is given. We are meeting with lots of citizens and businesses and working a lot of time together. We're working on a welcome package, and I want to give you a heads up. Pictures for council will be taken April the 18th, 2024. I need you all here by 5:15, 5:30 at the latest. And that's all I have to report right now. So we'll move on to our Director of Finance.
I have nothing at this time. You'll hear plenty from me at the workshop.
The Administrator, I'm sorry, Jerry.
Just a few things. Sorry about that. Next Tuesday or next Wednesday evening is the State Route 48 open house for the plan that the county engineer has worked on. That's from 6:30 to 8:30 at the South Lebanon Elementary School. They'll have picture boards and the plans, just so people can review the plans, and some interesting plans might come up as alternates or alternatives for the for this. This is between Ridgeview, Samara Mill Grove. We have a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting as well next Wednesday at 6. We have a Planning Commission meeting that's going to be on the 14th at 6. All that information will be on our website as far as the agenda and the packets. This past Monday, I met with the Warren County Tax Incentive Review Council. They reviewed the city's RAs and TIF areas and projects, and those were all found to be in compliance and continued for another year. Let's see. I already mentioned about the civil service tests. So the test is actually on the 23rd. All applications prior to, if you want to take the test, you have to application has to be in by the 21st. Go up and application are. We did get notice from Congressman Landsman's office that the House passed the federal budget yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. And as part of that budget, there was $12,000 in funding for the community center. So we're crossing our fingers that the Senate and the President finds us by the end of the week, I believe, is what the plan is. So we don't know the timetable on when that money will be available, but that'll be a welcome addition. We're still working on the design of the Forest Avenue, the Morrow Road, Mason Mar Millgrove project, which you just approved the additional engineering. As soon as the electric pole that needs to be moved from Hobart, that gets moved. Sidewalk on that. That's
we've been hard at work, believe me. Our wonderful law director.
I don't have anything this evening.
Wow, that's 4 meetings in a row.
It's a good thing.
I know. Corey, Sergeant Adams.
Just a couple things here. Everybody knows the bridge is out over on Pike Street, so we have been in between calls, and when we have the time to hit the traffic area, we've been making a lot more stops over there at Pike and Main. Somebody I stopped today was a little bit confused and got that intersection confused with the Pike and High, thinking that they could turn right. And so I've kind of straightened a few people out on that. But I want to make sure we get out there to the public that that intersection still has 4 stop signs, and you do have to stop at it. And we are in that area, and we will be making stops and or writing tickets or warnings depending. So here, I can go ahead and announce that now so everybody have kind of a heads up. And I don't know, a lot of them just really, I'm not sure where it comes from, but they were just a little confused about whether they had to or not with that being out. I don't know if you're aware, but there's still residents on the closed section. So people do drive that way. And there is a North Main section with apartments back there that people come down. So it's not just the 2-way. 4-way still used. The only other thing I have is I want to say again, thank you for your guys' support. I want to thank you also for the flock cameras. We are in talks with the commissioners about maybe trying to add some in other areas. So a lot of the stories that I bring from here go to the county, go to Deerfield Township to kind of express to them how important and how those tools have helped solve a lot of crimes. So I just want to say thanks again for giving us the tools that we have.
Everything you do for us.
Thank you. Thank you.
On to our council members. Council member Spicer.
Nothing to report.
Council member Federer.
Nothing to report, but thank you for last weekend.
We're great to go to. Council member Carmack.
Nothing to report.
Council member Harrison.
I wanted to remind
I'll invite everybody. But Barbara Wilders, the Red Hat Lady we call her, is having an event. I vote in honor of a veteran. And that is a program that you can get involved in. And it's at Saturday, March 9th, after the Easter egg hunt that we're having. No, I want to remind everybody about. Oh, did you cancel? Never mind about the Easter egg hunt. It's canceled. This is going to be inside, so it's not canceled. From 2 to 4. 2 to 4. And if you want to call Barbara, I have her phone number. If I put it out on social media.
Well, don't
but-
do that.
Yeah, I did. She asked, yeah, I know. But there hasn't been any, a whole lot of response to it. So, but it's a wonderful thing, to make people aware that you can take this program when you go to vote. Okay?
That's at the community center?
Yeah, it's at the community center and it's going to be in the auditorium. So you can probably, the door will probably be open at the end, which we're also going to be honored with a World War II vet if he finds the location, because he doesn't have a cell phone. I told him I'd be looking for him. He has the flip phone.
Want somebody to go pick him up?
That probably, I might have to do that. You know who I'm talking about, Bill Corbett.
Okay,
He's-
let me know and
Okay, maybe that's a good, I'll ask him if he wants someone. I mean, he drives and he's very active and involved and it's just, he was not familiar with our streets. So
if you tell me where he lives, Don and I can go get him.
I think that's it. I probably think of something else I need to just.
Always happens, believe me. Member Allen.
Have nothing to report.
Councilmember Holmes. I want to say Councilmember Brenda, Councilmember Linda, but
That's okay.
As she was relating to, the Easter egg hunt has been canceled due to rain. We'll 16th. If it rains out, then we'll do it 1 week after Easter. But that's our department. I'd like to thank our officers and all of our town workers, everyone that takes good care of this city and takes care of us. And I appreciate all the fire department as well. That's it.
thank you. Now, Tina, did you want to take a 5-minute break? Okay. All righty. I need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we'll have any opposed. Hearing none. Close the regular meeting.
I went back and I.
Obviously mine.
The
I almost
signature
called Jerry because I said, I have so much trouble with
Okay.
this Android.
sign here.
I thought, what did I do to it? But she has trouble with it too. So everybody's
Just
just
the initial.
not as savvy as you are with these things.
It just went blank all of a sudden.
Minutes and not.
The invoice. I just initialed that. You have to sign it.
Matter if I'm going. Oh, thank you. Did it come unplugged? The first problem, something not plugged in, caused all the problems. That's funny. Okay.
Wasn't plugged in.
Down on that side.
All the speak.
No, I'm
Yeah,
talking about
just-
my computer. So there was a reason like we couldn't get it to come up. So do we have to just open the meeting again?
I was going nuts.
And you, whose were
It's
they? Yours?
Andrews.
Ready.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, where's Brenda at? Brenda's gone now.
Okay, everybody,
Now I
remember
see what
you're
you
on an
mean.
open mic.
Kiss, kiss.
Oh. Let's go ahead and open it.
I'd like to bring the meeting to order of our council workshop, March 7th, 2024. And I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Finance. You want to do roll call? Go
Do
ahead.
roll call. Allen. Carmack. Combs. Fetter. Harrison. Spicer. The council, you guys, the presentation I'm going to go over, you should also have a printout of the slides in case you want to make any notes. I wanted to give that to you. The purpose of tonight's workshop is to present to council the city's 24 budget. Earlier in the week, you should have received a budget binder that contains all the detail of all the revenues and expenses budgeted by line item. Tonight, I'll just give you an overview of the proposed budget and answer any questions you might have had from my presentation or from anything that you saw in the binder. The final budget then, we had the first reading tonight, but it's scheduled to be adopted at the March 21st meeting. So let's get started. So to start off with the overview of where we began 2024, our beginning balance began at 15.9 million. That's the highest beginning balance we've had, I think, ever. So we're starting the year off with a very strong, healthy balance. Part of the reason that balance is so high is because a number of capital projects and things that we had budgeted for in previous years have been delayed. So allowing us to accumulate excessive funds above our expenses for the past 2 or 3 years. So the beginning balance is 15.9. We are estimating 11.8 in revenue, and we're estimating 14.8 in expenditures, and budgeted ending balance of 12.9. So there you can see that we are budgeting to spend approximately 3 million more than what we are anticipating taking in. And we'll go into that even further as we get further in the presentation. So let's take a look at the historical fund balance. This is for all of our funds. And here's where you can see, back in 2020, we had almost a $12 million balance. And then we've had steady growth all the way up through 2023. This past year, our revenues exceeded expenses by about 1.5 million, which is a 14% increase to put us at that 15.9 million. Here's a look at the revenues and budgeted operating expenses and capital expenses for our major funds. So you can see in the general fund, we started the year at We're going to propose to take in 3.2 revenue, but we're going to spend almost 5 million out of the general fund, which will give us that shortfall balance of 1.5. So whenever you spend more than you take in, it becomes a budget shortfall. That is not a good practice to have with your operating expenses would exceed revenues, but it's perfectly fine when you have one-time expenses for capital items that will not repeat in multiple years. And like I said, we're spending down our fund balance that we've accumulated over the past few years where projects were put off or delayed. So that amount is 5.3 million in capital is very large, but it's accumulation of multiple years. Where does the money come from? So our largest line item for revenue is charges for services, and that is your water and sewer and trash service fees that are billed out to customers. Our next highest item is our income tax at 2.5 million. This is a very important number because it funds our general fund and all the expenses that come out of the general fund. I'm going to point out that grants this year, we have almost 1.2 million budgeted in revenue from grants. And I believe I had detailed that out in the budget letter that relates to most of these OPWC projects that Jerry was just mentioning on Mason Morrow Millgrove, Morrow Road, and Forest Avenue. I'm just going to point out our interest income line. I budgeted $273,000 to receive in revenue. Last year, we did receive about $330,000 in interest income. That's significant to the general fund. And I hope that it continues to grow and that we continue to receive about a 5% monthly interest rate. Where's the money going to? This is expenses by category. Our biggest expense area this year is going to be that capital outlay of 5.1 million. Next is going to be our regular operating expenses that funds our day-to-day operations, that funds our contracts that we have with Cincinnati Waterworks, our Rumpke trash service contracts, our sewer treatment contract with the city of Lebanon. It funds our maintenance of equipment and vehicles and our utilities with Duke Energy, professional services, etc. It also, a next budgeted item here is salary and benefits. 12% of the budget is spent on personnel costs for salaries and their benefits. And 7% of the budget is going towards police safety services. This year, that number has increased because we have proposed adding an additional deputy to the sheriff's department. I believe since 1998, there have been 5 deputies, 4 which were funded by the city, 1 by the county commissioners. And it's time. We've grown, exponentially in a number of these years, and it's time to add another deputy. We probably could use 2 or 3, but budget-wise, we're going with 1. So it is what it is. And then debt service. So this year, our debt service includes a significant payment that we are making back on the municipal building notes. Back in 2018, the city borrowed, I believe, around $3 million to renovate this building. And 2021, we refinanced that amount down to $600-some thousand at a very low interest rate for the past 3 years of like 1.25%. I wish we could borrow money at that rate now. Unfortunately, we cannot. But in that payment is our $632,000 is in debt service to pay back that note this year. Let's talk a little bit more about salaries and employee benefits. Like I said before, that makes up 12% of the budget. Included in this year's budget, we have 17 full-time positions and 2 part-time positions. Included in the budget was a 3% wage increase that council authorized at the end of 2023 for 2024 employees. In the budget, we are proposing to add 2 additional positions, an executive assistant, clerk of council, and an additional maintenance worker. Right now, we are short-staffed, and of those 15 full-time positions that we have currently, about 5 of them are vacant. So that civil service test will be very helpful. Let's look at the general fund's historical fund balance. Like I said, because the general fund funds most other activities outside of your enterprise or operations. With enterprise meaning your water funds and your sewer funds. The general fund can support any other fund. It can support your street funds, but the water and sewer and trash should be self-sufficient. So the general fund itself, if you look back to 2020, it was almost 3 million. And since then we've grown almost to 5 million by 2023. So a significant increase has been happening in that general fund budget, mostly from your income tax revenue, which we've seen our strong tax base increase by adding new subdivisions such as Redwood and High Meadows, and the economy itself has been very generous to us. Oops, sorry. So the 24 revenue budget for general fund. So here's where I was saying, I mean, you can see income tax down there. It's 76% of our budget is from the general fund is from income tax earnings. Everything else is very small percentages, as it's outlined here, except for, let's see, our interest income has now made it to the second highest revenue source for our general fund. So we can't rely on that, but it has been nice to have that. Let's talk more about the general fund's earning tax. You can see back in 2018, let's see. Boop. Back in 2018, we were about 1.4 million that we were collecting in revenue from taxes. And in 2023, we're up to, oops. In 2023, we're up to 2.6 million. So it's doubled in that time frame. We've been averaging almost a 13% growth from 2019 to 2023. And just from 22 to 23, we had a 9% increase in our revenue. Our 24 number is budgeted less than our 23. I typically look back at 22's number or the previous year of actuals and base my estimate on that number. It's a conservative number. I'd rather us come in higher versus budgeting at a higher number and coming in lower. The expenditures for the general fund, here's where I was saying, that 2.5 million that we take in income tax, it has to fund all these operations. Our police enforcement being 21% of those funds, our salary and benefits being 22%, and then operating being 15%. The capital one though, here it's at 29%. That is higher than normal, but that is because we're going to spend down that general fund balance. Speaking of spending down the balances, it's because of these capital projects that we have planned for the year. Many of them have already been authorized by council. Many of them are currently in works, but we'll just highlight a few of those. We spoke about Hobart Street and the park sidewalks, Park playground improvements. We received a very generous donation from the Oder family, and that will be put towards this contribution to make improvements to that playground. Parking lot expansions for Oders and Rogers Park. Community center improvements. That 1 million there is our estimated contribution. Jerry spoke about us receiving notice this week of around $800-some thousand that was going to be provided. Correct. Okay. And then Mason Mara Millgrove widening phase 2. That's already got it started. Forest Avenue, Morrow. And this year we have in the budget, we've set aside $300,000 to do some long overdue street resurfacing and restriping. Hopefully those projects can be bid out in early spring and get started sometime this summer. With that also, I'll just skip down. We've got 2 sheriff cruisers, and with their outfitting, normally we budget every year for 1 cruiser, but because we are going to add an additional deputy, that's going to include 2 cruisers. And I want to look back just at capital outlay, because I know that 5 million number is kind of scary for how much we've budgeted to spend out in capital. But if you look back here, this chart shows what what was budgeted for capital in 2020 was almost 1.6 million. We spent around 460 and so on, so on. We only spend a very small fraction, or have only spent a very small fraction of the items that we have budgeted to capital improvement projects. Even last year, we had 2.5 million budgeted and we only spent 818,000. Now, a lot of that is because of projects that get delayed. I know the OPWC projects were delayed specifically because of other work that was going on and around the city and not wanting to close down any other roads at that time. So that put our projects on the backside burner. But those are back in the budget for 25 or 24, and we will get started with those. Okay, so that's my presentation. Do you guys have questions? Do you want to go back and look at any of these screens or anything that you had in your book or anything? I mean, I know that binder that you guys received, it's very detailed. It's lots of spreadsheets, lots of numbers, things that I enjoy. I'm assuming you do not, but but I'd rather give it to you and show you how it all rolls up and what makes up each one of these numbers that's in that appropriation ordinance that will be presented to council at the next meeting. We did meet probably middle of February. Jerry, the mayor, and I met with the finance committee, and we did go over our planned 5-year budget. And with that, we also discussed the current year budget for these 5 major funds, being our general fund, street fund, water fund, sewer fund, and trash fund or sanitation fund. And at that time, we discussed our personnel needs, and that's where we're proposing to add 2 additional positions to our personnel, being that executive assistant and the additional maintenance worker. I think at this time too, we're considering adding a public works director, or not adding, but having a public works director replace the current assistant city administrator position. So that you might see information about that, because we will have to bring those positions to council to have you actually approve their job descriptions and before we can hire them. But those numbers are already in the budget for this year. Any questions?
Just one clarification, just for new members. When you have the enterprise fund, that money is in its own little box, that bucket. Yep. So if you see it in the total budget, it can't be used for anything. It has to be used for a specific, like sewer has to be for sewer funds. Just for the clarification for new members, just you know it more.
So that's why that general fund amount that we talk about is so significant to our budget, because it does allow us to fund our road projects. Our street fund doesn't take in enough money to pay for annual resurfacing because we only get a percentage of money from gas taxes and things like that. Here's the street fund. So revenue budgeted for the street fund is $465,000. And then our regular operating expenses of $200,000. So when I mentioned that we want to spend $300,000 or so a year doing street resurfacing, that money has to come from our general fund. Other questions or things you want to point out, Jerry?
Just what great job Tina's done on putting this all together. Nobody knows. I knows how much time she puts into getting this all these numbers together. It just makes my head spin. So
it's a lot of work from this staff, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate them and all the work that they do, and bringing me up to speed on everything. And it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. So if there are no other questions or concerns, I'm going to ask for a motion to close this meeting.
Make a motion to close.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Meeting adjourned.